Hello, my name is Jeff Fuller. I'm basically going to just give you some vignettes and stories that I hope will expand on the reason I wrote the novel, Joint Task Force Phoenix, An American Odyssey, and a little bit about the characters and some of the backstory. I was encouraged to do this by one of my buddies who actually encouraged me to write the novel in the first place. So I'm grateful for his support. And I'm certainly grateful that you're interested enough in this story and my work in order to follow that on this presentation. So I'm an Army Special Forces officer. I graduated from OCS in 1966 and went into airborne training and then was um, offered a chance to go to qualification for Special Forces. I took that up and basically um, was found myself not long after that going through Special Forces training conducted by the 10th Special Forces Group, by the way, in the mountains around Bad Tolz in Germany, which is where the 10th was stationed. So, and then following that, I had a number of assignments, infantry, special forces, staff, and so forth for 24 years. Um, I my introduction to combat was in Vietnam, and in that assignment, I managed to get wounded 3 times. I was sort of a magnet for shrapnel, it turns out, but not grievously, thankfully. And I had the privilege of commanding a recon platoon, a rifle company, and and for a short while I acted as the operations officer for an infantry battalion. So I had a very engaged tour, and of course, as with most young men, it certainly formed a lot of the character that I carry around with me today. Um, so let me just turn to the fact that I'm hoping to address the reason I wrote the novel was to address concerns I had about the military and national policy under Obama. I started this process back in 2014. Probably just had an outline and a first couple chapters, and then Donald Trump screwed up the premise of my novel by getting elected, and so I put it on the shelf and I grumbled to a friend of mine that while I was happy about Trump, he messed up the premise of my novel. And after a while, he said, "Why don't you let me read this thing?" So I let him read it. And by that time, I'd probably had half the novel completed, and at least in pretty good form. And he said, "Look, publish a novel. Go for it. Finish it up and publish it because this happens all the time. Uh, Novels are not necessarily a reflection of reality, but they build on reality. And certainly this one builds on the concerns that I had about the unbelievably feckless Obama foreign policy at the time. I mean, he was fueling Iran's nuclear ambitions, giving them billions of dollars, not only in cash and C-130s on the airstrip, but also in the form of revenue out of um, oil sales. So I couldn't understand what the hell that was about. And then he was also towards the end of his time in office uh, doing a pathetic job of fighting against the Islamic State, which was growing in Syria and doing atrocities literally one after another, one day after another, um, to civilians um, and any combatants that they encountered. So they, he couldn't bring himself to let an Air Force bomber drop a bomb on these people. And his foreign policy seemed to be run by some 30-something uh, uh, youngsters who were idealistic and thought the military was an aberration, basically. We all know the stories about the Obama White House where military officers were not encouraged to speak to the staff or to any principals. and were better like kids, better left in the back in the corner. So that was the genesis for this thing, and there's some themes that run from that time today. And this, by the way, is about 3 days after the assassination attempt on Donald Trump. And everything, all the themes in this novel are absolutely applicable today. And I think you'll recognize them. And some of the things that I saw then ended up being, have come to pass in terms of the horrific nature of the political animal, the thrust, the need for power, the willingness to do anything to win. All of that is very present in today's politics. Um, so, and the woke military is still a significant threat, and we talked about it a little bit in this novel. So, with that, I'm going to turn to a little bit more about the story. Well, this story basically um, takes you from the time when the Joint Task Force has been alerted and is standing by to execute a mission um, to take out and hopefully capture leaders of the Islamic State in Syria. The purpose of that is to find out what they were doing with regard to um, operations in the United States that intelligence indicated would could result in a biological attack of horrific nature. So that was what got the thing started. I will be walking you through all the phases of the operation from the initial orders through completion of the mission. And most of that's based on, reality, the way the military generally conducts these kinds of operations, and how they interact with the intelligence business and so forth. What the different spin on this particular novel is, I have a lot of interface with the national security apparatus of the country, the president, some peek into the role of Congress and congressional leaders and so forth. So I bring in not just military, but the political aspects of these kinds of operations. Um, I don't address any specific, uh, certainly classified information, but I also avoid providing anything that I think might in any way be giving an advantage to the enemy. In fact, I hope that jihadists read this and decide to take up gardening, um, because they might get a sense of the relentless, driven nature of the special ops and intelligence folks that are aligned against them. So I'm going to introduce you to the protagonist. His name's Harris Norton, and I'll tell you a little bit of background on where this character came from. His dad was a Vietnam vet. He was raised in Western North Carolina. Went to ROCC, joined the Army, went into Special Forces, and then also decided he was going to go join the tip of the spear in the form of Delta. Passed through the process of uh, a very difficult qualification and so forth. During that tour with Delta, he lost his wife to cancer. He made it up the ranks to command the second squadron. And at the point that the novel starts, he's about 4 months into the JTF mission. JTF, that is the central theme or thrust of the novel. Uh, and in that mission was to go after Islamic State leadership in Syria that had been, and they had been on hold, going back and forth, going almost up to the edge, and then having the president cancel the mission and so forth. But they've reached a point now in this story where it's going to be very tough for the president to cancel the mission, because just like with Obama and the Osama bin Laden raid, uh, it was it was going to be leaking out to the press that Obama couldn't pull the trigger, and for no good reason. And that's basically where we find ourselves in this story, where the president has canceled the mission several times, and but the New York Times had gotten onto the story through some leaks, and basically they had to go with this or they're going to be eating some humble pie. And the reason they would be eating humble pie is that the intelligence sources had learned that the intent of the terrorist organization, Islamic State, was to conduct a bioterror attack in the United States, and that they were well along, that they had developed a bug that was about 80% death rate, which is significantly more than COVID, but totally within the science of the kind of things that they did with COVID, and they were close to getting it done, and they assumed that as it was just a few weeks before 9/11, that their intent was to have the attack coincide with 9/11. And there was some intelligence supporting that view. So there'd already been several terrorist attacks that marred the president's administration, and she couldn't have another one that would result in 100,000 deaths and martial law. So so basically the other thing that's from a human side, this Army Lieutenant Colonel Harris Norton had become involved with a chief warrant officer by the name of Cindy Clark. And I'll tell you where I get her character from. And it's from a hell of a woman, I can say that. And so that's where we start the story out. Now, let me just say, I'm going to introduce Cindy Clark. People who know her say that she reminds them of Wonder Woman. Very attractive, very healthy, and smart. She is a member of the Army Intelligence Support Activity, which is in effect, without saying too much about it, it's a classified operation. I won't say more than to say that she's an operator and an intel analyst in that organization, and has a hell of a reputation within the special ops community. She was raised by her mom. Her dad was killed in Vietnam, and she is a JSOC senior intel analyst. And JSOC, of course, is a Joint Special Operations Command at Fort Bragg, which runs counterterrorism operations around the world. Regrettably, she lost her foot to an IED in Iraq, and has recovered fully, except she can't run as fast and can't hump a rucksack. But she is a famous operator and is highly respected by the intel community, as well as the operators in Delta, SEAL Team 6, and so forth. She's a martial arts instructor, and her mission right now is to provide intelligence support to Joint Task Force Phoenix. So I'm going to end my story at this point for now, and we'll come back to it in a bit. As promised, I'm giving you here links to the Facebook page on the left, and that's where I intend to kind of keep things updated and any discussion in response to questions. You can order the novel on Amazon or other booksellers. This is a link to the Amazon page. If you do buy it from Amazon, I encourage you to review it favorably. If you don't like it, send me a message and tell me I screwed up. But I'd rather get nice reviews on Amazon, because I want to be successful with this novel so I can afford to write the follow-on one. And finally, the third QR code, it leads to a page where I just provide a summary of the characters involved so that you can kind of visualize them and so forth. And I don't expect to change that a lot, but it'll be something that you could print a copy of it if you wanted, and put it inside the book cover for yourself and anybody else that reads the novel. That's it. I hope you read with fun, and I hope it does bring an occasional tear and cause you to hold your breath occasionally and get a feel for the world of special operations from the perspective of a old special forces guy. And by the way, I'm not a Delta operator, and I don't claim to be. I have been around them. I have friends that have served in that awesome outfit. And I don't, when you're reading about the equipment and the material in this, understand that I create that based on my knowledge of what's available in the current market, not on any particular inside information. So if you're a terrorist hoping to gain some insight into our operators' techniques and so forth, you can probably save yourself the trouble because I only touch on that in the broadest sense. So I hope you enjoy it. Again, comment if you have any, and do so preferably on the Facebook page. Thanks so much. Well, I decided to add this. This is a graphic that I provide a link to, and it will be expanded over time, but this introduces you to my view of the characters. And I touch on some of the leadership of the Joint Task Force, including one of my mentors, who here is called Major General Sid Krakow. His personality and characters built around retired Major General Sid Shacknow, who served as Chief of Staff of SOCOM while I was there, first SOCOM at Fort Bragg. And then each of these other characters, except for the bad guys, are built around people in real life that I'm acquainted with or have some relationship to or knowledge of. So there you go.